time, not forget. Can everybody on the Zoom hear me? Just type in the chat and see the screen. Hear and see the screen. Yes, good. Awesome. All right, everybody. Heyo. Hope everybody's doing okay. How's everybody doing today on Thursday? Good. I heard there was a lot of midterms last night. Is this true?
I have one
yesterday. Oh, I heard Astro 7A and I think 61A and gross. Well, it's over now, hopefully. And for those of you that it's not over, that sucks, but I hope it is over soon. So let's get it started with today. So the announcements for today, homework 8 is live. So if you want to access that, go to files on B courses to see it. It was posted on Tuesday. There are a lot of references for you to look at under the resources folder. The homework is to write a curriculum vitae. And today we're going to talk about that. And then we'll have like workshop time for you to do it in class, hopefully, and get most of it done. That way you have lots of time to do your final projects or start working on them today. And that's kind of how the next bit of like the semester is going to go. Basically, we're going to do a bit of lecture stuff. We'll talk about like curriculum professional development and like resources for you. And then usually we'll like give you some time to do your homework in class or do lecture or work on your final projects in class. So you have lots of time to start working on them. And we want to make sure that you start working on them early because there is going to be a check-in. So don't think that you could just save everything for the last week before. We are going to do a check-in in a couple weeks from now, probably 2 or 3, to make sure that you are staying on top of it and not saving it for the last minute. So stay tuned for that. More information will come in a week or 2 about project check-ins. So yeah, homeworks are going to be light from now on, but they will be fun. I mean, I think these are probably like my favorite homeworks just because they're like really cool. You're like basically writing a resume for homework, or you're like making a personal website that can look really pretty. And we'll talk more about that next week. Yeah, and then check-ins in a couple weeks. And the attendance form is here for the people tuning in virtually. Sorry, that's a lot to type. Elon forgot to shorten the URL this time. Don't worry though, if you don't want to type it out, you could just wait till the slides are posted in an hour or 2. And you could just click on it then. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and then for the people here, there should be a paper going around. Ralph, could you get a paper going for attendance? Thank you. And we'll mark your attendance here today as well. Cool. Any questions? All right, let's go ahead and get started with today. So we're just gonna do a little bit of a warm-up question, make sure that you learned something last week, or including on Tuesday. If I want to include planet objects in my simulation, emphasis on the word objects, how would I make those objects in Python? That's the first question. And if you finish that question, you can ask yourselves, what is the main loop of a simulation? I will be asking for input, so please try to have something to say. If you can't answer one, try to answer the other. But I really want everybody to try to answer that first question, namely, how would you go about coding up a planet object in a simulation? What are the steps you need to do? What do you need to write? Maybe write it on a piece of paper. But yeah, we'll spend about 5 minutes doing this warm-up questions, and then we'll get on with today's lecture. So yeah, you have 5 minutes. And for the people on Zoom, oh yeah, you could like talk to your table in your group. In fact, I encourage you to like chat. And then I'm just gonna put everybody on the Zoom into a breakout room. Cool. All right, so I think everybody's back in the call. Cool. All right, time to reconvene. Please be quiet. Hello. Hopefully that was useful. Okay, would anybody like to answer this first question? Or at least like give a thought? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so mass and radius. And then what else might be really important if you're doing a simulation with planets in them, like traits maybe? Yeah, well, yeah. Arguably the most important components is like positions, velocities, and masses, right? Because that's what Newton's laws are important. They're like, well, really it's just position, but you know, Newton's laws really require you to know the position, the mass of all the planets to be able to do your F is equal to m1, m2 times g over r squared. But yes, that would be the most important thing. And then you could add some methods underneath, but you need to have your initialization function, right? Underscore, underscore init, underscore, underscore, and then self, you know, all that good stuff. Trying to remember that. Thank you. That was awesome. Anybody want to say what the main loop of simulation is? Yeah. And what kind of loop would we use to do a main loop? Anybody want to tell me what kind of loop it might be? Right, right. So just to reiterate, if you have a video game, right, you might want to stop your video game when somebody dies, mainly the main character. So if your health bar reaches 0, cut the while loop. Make sense? But you need to have some sort of possibility for the player to lose health, or else you'll be in an infinite loop forever that never ends, right? You need to have a way to end the game, or like a quit button or something. If the player presses, if the user presses Q, quit the game or something like that. Same thing with a simulation. You know, if the simulation has ran for 10 million years, then quit the simulation. Or like if you know the mass of the Milky Way goes to 0 or something in your galaxy simulation, end the game or end the simulation. Things like that. You need a condition to end it. You don't know how long it's going to go for, but you want to, you know, you want to have some condition that can be met, like as opposed to like a for loop, for example, when you have like, you know, I have 1,000 items in my list and I want to look at all the items in my list. That's what you would use a for loop for. A while loop, you don't really know how long something's going to be, but you just want to be able to keep going until some condition is met. Cool. So that was a nice warm up. Let's talk about curriculum vitaes. Very fancy words. If you haven't taken Latin before, it just means course of one's life. That's what it translates to. Curriculum, usually we know what that word means, and vitae means life. So course of one's life, you know, it's kind of tracking everything you've done. It's basically like a resume with some little extra stuff, you know, resume plus epsilon or minus epsilon, depending on how you view it. But typically you want to, like, CVs can be longer than resumes. Like for a resume, you may have heard the phrase, keep your resume 1 page. It's a 1-pager. CVs, that's not necessarily the case. They could be as long as you want. I've seen professors with 20-page CVs before. Obviously, we don't have that much stuff to write about ourselves. Otherwise, we'd be quite narcissistic. But professors may have tons of publications that they've written, textbooks that they've written, talks that they've given, shows that they've been on, etc., depending on what your lifestyle and your career is like. So these curriculum vitae are meant to be kind of like an entire encapsulation of your entire career. And that's how they can get really, really, really long, but we're undergrads. So in our sense, a curriculum vitae is basically the same thing as a resume. And they're specialized for your career. They usually include like your education, your qualifications, and whatnot for a position or job. It's going to be crucial for you to have a CV for short. for any job application and or grad school application if you want to go to graduate school. So this is like a crucial thing to have. And I want to give you some examples of like what they look like. Hopefully all the instructors have submitted theirs on the B courses, but I have quite a few different samples because they can really range in terms of what we see on them. So if you go to our homepage and you want to look at all these examples for your inspiration, you can go to files and then you go down over to resources and we go to the curriculum vitae examples. And these are a bunch of examples that I have like kind of accumulated for you. And they all have very different styles. And in fact, you'll be able to make your own custom curriculum vitae using like your own whatever template you want to use. For example, here's a student. She's the intern now for this class, and you can be an intern too. I'll tell you more about how you can be one if you want. A paid intern, I might add. But she took this class last semester, and this is what her curriculum vitae looks like. Will be probably similar to what yours will look like. Now, the style is, you'll see, can range quite drastically, but some common things you always see, like your education, like what is the degree you're shooting for? What school do you go to? Maybe what GPA, if you feel comfortable sharing that. You like what job experience have you had that's relevant to the position you want? So, if you've been a grader for some astronomy class or physics class, that might be good. If you were a tutor, that might be really good to put as like work experience that's related to what you're doing. You don't want to put anything under the sun. Mainly, if you worked at McDonald's, chances are that has like no correlation to how well you could study astrophysics research. So like, probably don't put that there. Like if you got to think like, if I am looking at somebody to admit this job, is everything that they put on their CV relevant to what they want to do? That being said, if you think in that mindset, you might be hesitant to put things that you might not think are valuable. But you can see there'll be a lot of drastic like differences on what people put on their CVs and what they want to put and how it relates to like potentially different jobs that they're applying for. And it's okay to have more than one CV type. So you might have a CV that's specified specifically for an industry job. Mainly, you can talk about like if you did like a lab class like with circuits and stuff. Or like took a astronomy like data course or something where you're like working with big data and you want to go work at some firm or like data science job that's not grad school. You might tailor your curriculum vitae specifically to that job as opposed to like a grad school where you might highlight your classes you've taken and the grades you have. That might be a little different emphasis, and it's okay to have different versions. So namely Megan, she was a grader for Kumon, like a mentor and tutor for a high school. Typically you include your skills, like what can you do? I think everybody in this class should be able to put Python down now, and even LaTeX actually. Those are two skills that you would have definitely learned through this class. I better see that on like everybody's CV. I think you definitely can say Python, maybe some libraries and technologies that So if you know Illustrator and Photoshop, that might be a really valuable thing to have on there. Even though it's not necessarily science, it might be a useful skill that people might see. What libraries do you use? These are like kind of standard in any research. So if they see that these, then they'll be pretty confident that you can do whatever research they need you to do. You should always have your like research interests, for example. This is like a really important aspect of like what you're looking for, kind of like a summary of why you want this job, this position. Research projects that you've done, these are relevant to what like applying to grad school, for example. Everybody should put Python DeCal final project. That is definitely a very easy research project to put on there. Even though you haven't presented it yet, put pending or something. It's a very, very easy first one. You can also do research talks. At the end of the semester, you have to give this talk. So might as well put it down. And then like extracurriculars and whatnot. This is a good example. You should always have like an email, a way of contacting yourself, maybe an address if you feel comfortable, or a link to your personal website. We'll talk about that next week. So that's one example. We can look at another one. Let's look at my CV. Ooh. Drastically different looking. Very, very different looking. A lot more minimalist. Because in my mind, the way I did it, I had made this when the days of like printing a CV were like super important. So you needed it to be black and white, maybe a little blue, but like not a lot of color and whatnot, for like black and white printers. So I wanted to look as best as it can for that kind of scenario. But anyway, you can see I have my education, where I'm going to school, my degrees or degree, when I expect to graduate. I have my research interests, what I like studying. You don't want to put like, you don't like, this is really important for like when you apply to graduate school, for example. If their department has only, I don't know, like exoplanet people, and I want to study cosmology and stars that explode, they're probably going to reject me because one, I didn't do my research to see what's at the department, but two, my research interests don't align. You don't want to get stuck with a job for 6 years or like a research project that is completely not what you're interested in. Fastest way to get super unmotivated. Then you have like, I have a bunch of research experiences that I've had, like projects that I've done, REUs that I've gone to and whatnot. I even put my Physics 77 project on here still because it's valuable. I wrote like a pool game. You all saw the pool game. I thought it was pretty cool. So that was a big helpful thing. I also did like some summer school thing. If you do like a program for like, coding or whatever over the summer, that's still a really good thing to do. I have like workshops and whatnot in here. You might give talks, research talks, Python DeCal talk is already a great one. Projects, definitely Python DeCal stuff. Skills, I have different programming languages I've like learned. Some of them are a little bit more fibby than others. I kind of know HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, like a kinda, but I'm not an expert, not nearly the same as in Python. But nonetheless, if you kind of know it, I think you should put it on there. Technologies like GitHub, Illustrator, Photoshop, these aren't even related to science, but I like to do graphic design and art sometimes. So, that might be something really useful. And it could be as simple as Google Drive. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how many old people don't know what that is, or don't know how to use it efficiently, at least. Microsoft Office programs. Yeah, these are the big heavy hitters on my CV here. Libraries, like I even put Pygame, like that library that I used to make the video game. Probably nobody's gonna care, but maybe. And like codes and whatnot that I've used. And then like I put languages that I speak. So yes, I can speak a little French. Outreach is like if you're really into like like outreach and talking to younger people, or just the regular community, not the scientific community, and trying to inspire people, you might want to have a section on that. I particularly really like doing that. So like I put some research or some like programs I did in summer camps I helped run at like throughout my high school and college years. Typically everything that's on your CV though should be college onward. So freshman year onward. You could put a little bit of high school stuff if you would like, but like, don't put, I won the 8th grade science fair. Nobody's gonna care, promise. But this, this I kind of did through college and high school, so it was kind of a blurry area. Some people might not include this, some people would. Go ahead. That is a good question. So for the stuff like that, that is why a personal website is amazing, because you can take pictures of it and document it on your website. And then people can go to your website from your CV and see even more about you. But we'll talk about that next week. So there is an avenue to show those things that most people, when they apply for fellowships and grad school, they don't really know the power of a website. Being able to just click on a website and see like all sorts of stuff about a person with pictures and videos and stuff is way more appealing than looking through a bunch of text that says I built something in my garage on your professional CV. It's not the same effect. And honestly, it's a good way to kind of push more information down your reviewer's throat than they were planning for, in a good way, of course. And then like, for example, I do teaching. So I put some classes that I've been teaching at Berkeley, and like I was a mentor and like helper at like schools for jobs and whatever, part-time jobs. And like, maybe you want to put some awards if you have some scholarships, those count. You may have won those in high school, but if they're still helping you through college, it might be good to put your scholarships down if you have any. Extracurricular activities. This is all my stuff from like junior year. But yeah, and you notice that it's not one page, it's actually 2 pages, and it might even get longer. I wouldn't recommend more than 3, but honestly, at this point, probably not very many of you have more than like a page worth of stuff anyway. It's okay to have more if you do, but don't feel embarrassed if you don't have a lot of stuff to write about. you're only just starting your kind of academic careers, I would say. So, or if you're a senior or junior, maybe not, maybe you have more stuff to talk about, but please don't feel ashamed if you don't have tons of stuff to come up with. And we have some guidelines to help you kind of write a full page worth of stuff. And then I also have like links to my LinkedIn, for example, my phone number, my email. Please don't call me. Well, maybe after the class. I just want to give you a couple more examples really quick. We'll just like blast through all the instructors really quick. Here is Emily's. Looks very different in a good way. Emily is, you don't want to go to grad school, right? You want to go into industry, right? Yeah, I don't know why it's all weird formatting right now. Why is it not letting me? Yeah, there we go. There we go. So like, for example, like it's a lot more like, or I wouldn't say a lot more different, because that's not right English, but it's still got all the same components, I would say, maybe characterized more towards industry type jobs, like in computer science. But it still has like an objective or like passions, what you're interested in. It has like experience that's relevant to what you want to do, you know, involvement in projects and like kind of like experience, skills, like languages that you've learned in like computer science or like computer languages, technologies, notice pandas, NumPy, you know, scikit-learn for machine learning, Jupyter notebooks, etc. Awards. It's got all that good stuff on it. And it has ways to contact Emily. It even has links to her GitHub. We can look at like Isla, a very similar format to the one that I chose. But you see like all the same things apply, like an objective or like personal interests, like what you want to do in life, essentially, you know, your education, experience, like what projects have you done, like, yeah, other job experiences that might be relevant, not necessarily research experience, but job experiences, awards, you know, community service you may have done, you know, like whatever you've done for your community, technical skills, all that good stuff. And there are some definitely different ones. I want to show you kind of what a graduate student's might look like. Now that they've graduated, they're done with undergrad. They're a little bit more along the path than we might be. They have a lot of stuff going on here. Namely in education, like they don't have their GPA anymore, because after undergrad, once you get into grad school, nobody cares about your GPA ever. So they have like the degrees they're aiming for, like a PhD and a master's, but they have their bachelor's degree from University of California, Berkeley, and maybe an advisor that they worked under. Still have the same old research interests. Eventually, if you want to go into academia and whatnot, you might have publications that you've written that were published, you know, like science works. Honors and prizes, awards, it's all kind of there. If any of you do research in the department, you might go like present your research at conferences like, you know, APS or AAS. These are like giant national conferences where you get to fly out to like some location and present your research for hopefully for free. Hopefully you don't have to pay out of pocket, but you know, it's a pretty cool experience. One in Utah this coming January, and like the one before that was in Hawaii a couple of years ago, before COVID hit. We have like talks, observing experience, you know, like what tools have you used? Maybe you're really big on telescopes and you want to put down telescopes that you've worked with. Maybe you like want to put down, if you're really interested in like working in a lab, like a physics lab, maybe you want to talk about like the circuit technologies that you've used, like what kind of oscilloscopes have you used and whatnot, if that means anything to you. Teaching experience, community involvement, et cetera, et cetera. Notice this one's 3 pages long. Definitely you can go over a page if you so chose. There are more here. You're not just limited. We gotta give Raphael some love too. This is like a completely different like template that he used, but it still conveys all the same information. You can kind of look through it. Nice CV, Rafi. Looks very nice. And when you have a website and a web page, we can just look at this graduate student, for example. Hopefully all of you, oh, it's not linked. That's lame. Hold on. Sloppy. But if you go, you can like go to their website and you can see all sorts of cool stuff that they're doing, like research projects and like pipelines that they've written, classes they've taught. And we'll build our own research websites for our own purposes later. But yeah, so like it's important to have that, and you can like link your CV onto it. And this is the most updated version of his CV. Notice how it's changed quite a lot since the day he wrote it. And it has like, it's quite a bit updated since then. But anyway, let's see, going back to files. Yeah, we're here. Cool. So those are just some examples. There's a few more here. I encourage you to look through them for inspiration. But now I want to talk about, I want to make sure, where did it go? There we go. Yeah, how to write it. Let's give it a little example of how to do this. So on B courses, there is a file for homework 8. We will go to it really quickly. Go to homework. Oh my gosh, who is slacking me right now? We click on homework 8. Hopefully it'll load quickly. Maybe not. While that's loading, we can go to overleaf. So you're going to code it up in LaTeX, or you're going to write it in LaTeX. And this is a perfect example of using templates to start with. Writing all those formatting would be a royal pain in the rear, so you don't have to do it. Let's go to new project. And if you go down to templates, they actually have a whole section devoted to resumes and CVs. So you can go in here and pick whatever one you really like. Honestly, they're all kind of fine. CVs are a bit more minimalistic because they can be a lot longer. If you plan to not go to graduate school and maybe you want to go into just like a job in the industry, you might choose to do more of a resume as opposed to a CV. But yeah, so these are all perfectly viable choices to pick. You can pick whichever one you like. This one says Harry Potter. How cute. I don't know. Maybe we could pick. Which one should we pick, y'all? The Harry Potter? Okay. So you pick whichever one you like, whichever one looks cool to you. This one is like a nice, nice basic template. You just go ahead and you click on it, and then you could download it as a PDF, but we're going to open it up as a new template in our overleaf environment. And next thing you know, boom, you have access to the whole document. How do you edit it? Well, this is just basic overleaf stuff, LaTeX stuff. The way I do it is I just look through and I try and find whatever corresponds to the text on the right side in the document. So I see the word Harry Potter here. I'm going to this, I see /name, and I'm like, nice. So we can make one from scratch. You just, instead of Harry Potter, you do like your name, switch it to James Sinceri, and now it has my name. Yeah, I went to Hogwarts, but you get the point. You could change like your GitHub links, your email links, etc. You can scroll down to whatever sections, technical skills. If I want, I could change this to a bunch of 2s, and we should see that pop up probably like right here, I think. Yeah, so I edited it like that. You can do a whole bunch of edits, just change to whatever you like. Fill in the template the way you would for your personal, everything. And yeah, so I mean, that's not super hard. I just want to really quickly, I don't know why it's not loading. That's a bummer. Maybe it'll load faster.
It says it's 9 bytes on so I don't know if this is a problem.
Interesting.
I downloaded a 9 byte PDF file. That doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, that's good to know. I will re-upload that, but I have it here, I believe. Yeah, I have it right here. So we'll just look at the overleaf like this. This is your homework, and I'll kind of walk you through everything that we want. So again, like all the good stuff that I'm talking about. Yes, good. You need to write a CV. It needs to be done in LaTeX, etc. And the way we have it, in order to get full credit, you need to satisfy at least 5 of these bullet points. Pick your 5. Although I would recommend that the first one and the second one are definitely the easiest to do. So you should definitely put your name. That would be really weird if I saw a CV with no name on it. So, pick 5 of these bullet points. Obviously, some of you might not have research talks, but you should because Python DeCal, but maybe you don't have, I don't know, outreach or teaching, for example. If you don't have that, don't worry. You can do other stuff, but try to fill as many of these out as you possibly can. Again, like you should definitely put your research experience. First thing first is the Python DeCal project, whatever else you may have done, talks, Python DeCal stuff, skills, Python, LaTeX, outreach and teaching, maybe not. awards, extracurriculars, related hobbies, whatever that may be. Research interests, what you're interested in studying, all these good stuff, good things. You should put at least 5 of those down on your CV, and that's what we'll be looking for. So, I mean, for the rest of today, it's really just for the next 10 minutes, pick a CV template on Overleaf and, have fun. And we'll walk around if anybody has any questions or whatnot. But that's all I have for today's lecture. This homework assignment, I'm going to try and re-upload this document to B courses so that it works properly when you click it. Yeah, so just go ahead and do that. Cool. And then for the folks on Zoom, you can choose to stay, or I can just put you all in a breakout room and you can work together as well. I'm going to stop recording.